General Hospital will reveal Alexis acted immediately upon learning that her daughter might be involved in a serious accident that left Rick and Elizabeth hospitalized in critical condition. With the sharp instincts of a seasoned attorney and the deep concern of a mother, Alexis couldn't sit still. She decided to launch her own investigation, not only to protect Kristina from potential legal consequences, but also to uncover the hidden truths surrounding the incident. What haunted Alexis even more was the unsettling suspicion that Kristina might have been manipulated by someone else, driven toward this dark path under unseen influence. Starting at the scene of the accident, Alexis meticulously examined every detail. She collected footage from nearby surveillance cameras, reviewed the vehicle's technical data, and sought out individuals who had serviced or interacted with the car in the days leading up to the crash. A mechanic at a local garage shared a shocking revelation. Days before the accident, a strange man had come in requesting a discreet adjustment to the braking system, not to fix it, but to weaken it. Alexis demanded access to the maintenance logs and uncovered a chilling detail: the tampering with the brakes had occurred before Kristina ever had access to the car, making it impossible for her to have been solely responsible. The truth became even more disturbing when Alexis retrieved audio footage from the garage's hidden camera, which captured a low-tone conversation between the mechanic and the mysterious man. The voice was not Kristina's. This man had left a large sum of money to ensure no questions would be asked. When Alexis analyzed the voice and build of the man, she was horrified to recognize him as someone connected to Ava, an intermediary involved in shady dealings surrounding custody issues with Avery. Alexis began to question everything. Could Ava have orchestrated not only the blackmail of Sonny but also the car accident itself, using Kristina as a pawn? Once all the evidence was gathered, Alexis ensured that it was legally documented and presented the full case to Sonny, who was at the time recovering from a severe heart attack brought on by intense emotional pressure. What Alexis had uncovered left Sonny stunned, while Ava, who had believed her plan had succeeded, was thrown into a state of rage and desperation. Ava had assumed that implicating Kristina in the crash would be enough to break Sonny down, but now, the very evidence she thought was her weapon had turned against her, dismantling the elaborate scheme she had crafted. As the web of secrets unraveled, Alexis realized that her daughter, though guilty of making a reckless decision in a moment of grief and anger, was in truth a victim ensnared in a far more sinister plot. That realization only strengthened Alexis's resolve to protect Kristina at all costs. Not only with the logic of a lawyer but with the fierce, unwavering love of a mother who had seen her child teeter on the edge of destruction. Before the truth came to light, Kristina was drowning in a relentless storm of guilt, fear, and confusion, convinced that she alone was responsible for the horrific accident that left Rick and Elizabeth fighting for their lives. The weight of that belief gnawed at her every waking moment, consuming her from the inside out. Ever since the tragic loss of the baby she was carrying, a devastating consequence of a physical altercation with Ava, Kristina had begun to spiral emotionally. That confrontation, which ended with Ava grabbing her arm and causing her to stumble backward through an open window, became the defining trauma that broke something deep within her. She held Ava solely accountable for the loss, believing that had Ava not grabbed her in anger, the fall never would have happened and the baby might still be alive. In the aftermath, Kristina's grief festered into something far darker, an all-consuming resentment. She became obsessed with the idea that Ava needed to pay for what she had done. Her pain clouded her judgment, twisting her perception of justice into vengeance. In a moment of intense emotional instability, led more by impulse than reason, Kristina made a fateful decision. She tampered with the car Ava was supposed to drive, cutting the brake lines with trembling hands and a pounding heart. It wasn't a meticulously planned act, but a desperate and chaotic attempt to hurt the person she blamed for her suffering. But fate, as cruel and unpredictable as ever, took a different path. Ava, for reasons unknown to Kristina at the time, didn't get behind the wheel that day. Instead, it was Rick and Elizabeth who ended up in the car. The brakes failed, sending the vehicle careening into disaster. The news of the crash hit Kristina like a lightning bolt. She was stunned, horrified, and numb with disbelief. Though she had never intended to hurt them, she immediately realized the unthinkable might have happened. Paralyzed by guilt, she kept her secret buried deep within, confessing only to Lucky, the one person she believed she could trust, the only one who might understand her anguish without condemning her. Unbeknownst to Kristina, the plan she thought was hidden had already begun to unravel. Ava, ever calculating and ruthless, had quietly discovered the tampering. She noticed something was off with the vehicle's braking system and quickly connected the dots. But rather than report it, she chose to weaponize the knowledge, holding it close like a loaded gun. Knowing Sonny's heart condition and his relentless need to protect his children, Ava saw a golden opportunity to strike. She leveraged the situation to blackmail Sonny, threatening to expose Kristina's involvement unless he gave her full custody of their daughter, Avery. All the while, Kristina remained completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. She lived each day haunted by what she had done, terrified that her actions might one day destroy her family. And yet, in her desperation to bury the truth, she had no idea that it was already being used as a tool of manipulation, one that could shatter her father, cost him his daughter, and unravel everything their family had fought to hold together. At the same time, Sonny found himself plunged into a devastating crisis, one that tested not only his mental fortitude but also the limits of his already fragile health. The pressure mounting on him was relentless, suffocating. Ava, always cold and calculating, had discovered just enough about Kristina's role in the car accident to wield it like a dagger. Rather than go to the authorities, she chose to use the information as leverage, turning Kristina's mistake into a powerful weapon. With a cruel smile and a heart of stone, she confronted Sonny and demanded full custody of their daughter, Avery. The implication was crystal clear: either Sonny handed over Avery without a fight, or Ava would expose Kristina's actions and ensure that the girl he loved so fiercely would spend years behind bars. This ultimatum placed Sonny in an impossible position. He was caught between protecting one daughter's freedom and losing another. The thought of Kristina behind prison walls was unbearable. She was already struggling emotionally, barely holding herself together after the trauma of losing her baby. But the idea of never seeing Avery again, of surrendering his rights as a father to a woman he no longer trusted, tore at his soul. The weight of it all pressed down on him day and night. Sonny, known for his strength and composure in even the darkest underworld dealings, found himself helpless in the face of this personal nightmare. His heart, both emotionally and physically, was reaching a breaking point. The stress triggered a dangerous resurgence of Sonny's long-standing heart condition. Despite trying to manage it quietly with medication and regular checkups, his body began to betray him. Sleepless nights, hidden anxiety, and emotional turmoil took their toll. He became short-tempered, distant, and pale, but refused to confide in anyone. He kept up the illusion of control, even as his pulse raced and his chest tightened more each day. It all came to a head during one especially tense evening when Ava cornered him once more, pressing her demands with venom-laced threats. The room spun, his vision blurred, and a sharp, unbearable pain pierced through his chest. Sonny collapsed. Emergency services were called, and he was rushed to the hospital, unconscious and barely clinging to life. Doctors worked frantically to stabilize him, but the prognosis was grave. The heart attack had been massive, and without swift intervention, the consequences could have been fatal. As the news spread, chaos erupted within the Corinthos family. Michael and Dante rushed to the hospital, terrified that they might lose their father. Carly, though no longer romantically involved with Sonny, stayed by his bedside, shaken by the image of the once powerful man now lying helpless under the harsh glow of hospital lights. And through all of this, Kristina remained in the dark, completely unaware that her past actions, believed to be buried and forgotten, had not only resurfaced but had indirectly pushed her father to the brink of death. The guilt she already carried would pale in comparison to the devastation that awaited her when the full truth came out. While Sonny lay in a hospital bed fighting for his life, his daughter's secret had become the catalyst for a storm that threatened to rip their entire family apart. News of Rick and Elizabeth's accident spread quickly within the Corinthos family, casting a heavy shadow over everyone involved. What began as quiet whispers in hospital hallways soon grew into murmured suspicions and uneasy glances passed between family members. There were too many unanswered questions, too many details that didn't quite add up. The brake failure, the timing, the fact that the vehicle had recently been in for maintenance, all of it stirred an undercurrent of anxiety that no one could ignore. Conversations were laced with veiled speculation, and though no names were mentioned outright, Kristina could feel the pressure building around her like a tightening noose. Each interaction became more painful than the last. Every look held a question she couldn't answer, every silence felt like a condemnation. Her mind spun with paranoia and guilt. She began to withdraw from her family, avoiding eye contact, staying silent in conversations, and isolating herself whenever possible. The weight of what she believed she had done, believing herself the cause of two people's suffering, was crushing her spirit. The guilt gnawed at her day and night, but more than anything, it was the fear that truly consumed her, the fear that if Sonny ever discovered the truth, he would never look at her the same again. Kristina idolized her father. Despite their complicated past, she had always felt a deep connection to him, a yearning for his approval and love. The idea that he might see her as a criminal, a disappointment, someone who had brought shame upon the family, it was unbearable. She imagined his face twisted in disappointment, his voice quiet and cold, his love withdrawn. That possibility haunted her more than any courtroom ever could. What Kristina didn't know was that Sonny, far from turning his back on her, was fighting for her in the most literal, physical way. At that very moment, he was lying in a hospital emergency room, barely clinging to life after a severe heart attack brought on by the stress of Ava's blackmail and the secret he carried about Kristina. He had chosen to carry that burden alone, shielding her from the consequences, willing to sacrifice his own peace of mind, and now, possibly his life, to protect her. While she sat alone, terrified of rejection and punishment, her father was on the brink of death for her sake. And yet, she remained in the dark, unaware of just how deep his love ran, how far he was willing to go to keep her safe. That irony, her hiding from a father who was fighting with every breath to protect her, was the cruel twist of fate that neither of them saw coming. It wasn't until Alexis presented the hard evidence that the heavy boulders weighing down the entire family began to lift. The truth, once murky and buried beneath layers of pain, suspicion, and fear, finally surfaced like a breath of air after a long and suffocating plunge. The proof Alexis had gathered, surveillance footage, mechanic testimonies, and the damning audio recording, had not only dismantled Ava's twisted narrative but had also absolved Kristina of the blame she had been silently shouldering. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for Kristina, but for everyone who had been holding their breath, waiting for a resolution that never seemed to come. Sonny, still weak but steadily recovering from his heart attack, received the news with quiet, overwhelming relief. In the sterile stillness of his hospital room, with the rhythmic beep of monitors keeping time with each fragile heartbeat, he finally allowed himself to exhale. There was no grand gesture, no emotional outburst, just a solemn, sincere moment between two parents. He looked at Alexis, gratitude etched into the lines of his face, and nodded. His thank you was silent, but deeply felt. She hadn't just saved Kristina from the legal system, she had saved her from herself, from a spiral of guilt and destruction that could have swallowed her whole. But the damage, though not criminal, had left its mark. The emotional toll of everything that had unfolded did not vanish with the emergence of truth. Kristina, despite being cleared of wrongdoing, still carried the emotional scars of what she had believed she had done. The guilt didn't simply disappear because the facts had changed. She had spent weeks punishing herself, fearing her father's rejection, believing she was responsible for the pain and chaos that had engulfed their family. That kind of trauma does not fade overnight. She needed time to heal, time to reflect, and time to learn that love is not proven through vengeance or retaliation. She needed to understand that forgiveness, both from others and from oneself, is often the hardest but most powerful path forward. The rage that had consumed her, the desire to see Ava suffer, had led her dangerously close to becoming someone she never wanted to be. Now, with the truth revealed and her family rallying behind her, Kristina faced the daunting but necessary journey of rediscovery and redemption. For Sonny, the ordeal had been more than a health scare, it had been a profound wake-up call. His heart, patched together by medicine and willpower, was only part of what had been damaged. Watching his daughter unravel, nearly losing her to despair and his own life to the crushing weight of secrets, forced him to reevaluate everything. He realized that the most important role he could play was not as a protector who shielded his children from consequences, but as a father who guided them through their darkest moments with compassion and wisdom. The past could not be changed. The mistakes had been made. But the future, still fragile, still uncertain, was worth fighting for. Sonny knew now that the path forward would require patience, trust, and more love than ever before. Not the fierce, possessive love of a man used to control, but the quiet, enduring love of a father who had seen the edge of the abyss and chosen to walk his daughter back from it.